the reality of it.
Absolutely.
And then I think it's unfair for you to say that this SR did not start on a bar napkin because it definitely the idea started on a bar napkin, because that's how most ideas start. You get a couple people in the bar and they're like, it would be cool. And then the real work comes, all the staffing and all the real late nights and grinding and pissing people off. But so there's some good things that start from bar napkins.
No, that's fair. We did. I mean, there were some things that like we struggled through, like, the name, for example. And I like I said, the SALT legacy is surveillance or reconnaissance surveillance. That was always the foundation. The difference is like, what are you reconnoitering? What are you surveilling? Right. Like, so that's kind of what changed. And the other piece that changed is really making sure that we are a jointly credible asset in terms of reconnaissance surveillance. And to do that, you really got to set up the foundation correctly. I don't think reconnaissance and surveillance is something that you dip your toes in. Like, it's a commitment. You can't sort of half-ass it. You really got to whole ass it. And so when we were going over the name, that was kind of one of these bar napkin conversations pieces, but what do we do? Do we come in soft or do we come in hard? And we decided to come in hard. And knowing that, we were going to catch some attention and some flack. But ultimately that, hey, if we're gonna go into this, we should go all in as a community, and it got support, and honestly, like, that bar napkin conversation happened before I ever got to the seat, so I can't even claim credit. I can't say I wasn't in the bar when we were writing on the napkin, but I can't claim all that credit. I just picked up the reins. But you're right.
No, but what I do need though is that you have PJs or Js. Like, I need a good name instead of SR dudes, because I can't, like, I got controllers, I got Js. Like, I need a real, SR dude. Like, that's what I use, but we need another bar napkin to help with the naming convention.
Well, we talked about like Special Reconnaissance Airmen, but then you're at SRA, which is kind of already used by the Air Force a little bit. So.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that floated around, but
the one thing that ties into Recce that we haven't touched on right now is the kind of not RPA, I'm sorry, remote pilot, but the small unmanned aerial systems, the little drones, and the array of different drones that we're kind of using. Can you elaborate on some of that a little bit?
Sure. So as with all things, these are probably very disappointing answers. I'm just going to say that for people who are looking for to dispel vagaries. Like, I'm not dispelling any vagaries. I'm just creating more. But so the Air Force is going through a huge kind of revamp where we in A3S are leading that charge as mandated by, our bosses, the A3, but this came out of a kind of an audit agency report that the Air Force is not programmatically established very well to manage a SUAS program. So we're looking at what that looks like in the future. What should a programmatically supportive program look like from the Air Force's perspective? That's our charge. But all that to say that we're working that out. So AFSOC is kind of the OPR, the primary responsibility right now for the Air Force's SUAS program, although that's changing, and I think A3S is picking up those reins, and it may move somewhere else upon conclusion of our analysis. But the whole SUAS program, I mean, jointly is shifting. I mean, you guys know probably better than I'm not as techie as most people out there because I've gotten really good at typing over the last 3 years and less good at technical stuff. But man, there's so much going on with SUAS. Groups. There's talk of changing how the groups are structured. For everybody out there, we have groups of small UASs, unmanned aerial systems or aircraft systems. It's basically the groups are, for simplest terms, they're based on weight. There are some other factors that determine where a system falls within a group, but in the simplest terms, they're based on weight, and the group 1 being the lowest weight. So your tiny little, not much bigger than a Dragonfly systems. Those would be like Group 1 up to a certain weight. I don't ask me to rip out the numbers right now, but there are 5 of those, and Group 5 being your big systems, and Group 1 being the ones. Group 2 maybe that we would be invested in today from an operator point of view. Obviously we're more concerned with the smaller systems, but we have it in our training plan today that we're training on both rotary and fixed wing systems. Although that distinction is becoming muddy. Like, it just, everything is changing so rapidly. I argue from my perspective that all this talk about SUAS, cyber, EMSO, AI, machine learning, all that stuff is changing. And so it's going to be really hard in the future to kind of distinguish between, like, you're not going to be able to point a finger at somebody and say, hey, so you do cyber, right? Like, because that might mean that you also, like, in what capacity? That could just as easily mean typing on a keyboard as it could flying a SUAS, 5 years from now. So I think all those things are sort of converging. We're putting things on these platforms that do stuff that's non-kinetic, like cyber and EW, and we're looking at things that work that way. We're looking at how AI changes the game in terms of SUAS and how systems communicate with the human and how systems communicate with each other. What's the human interface in the future for a swarm of drones or something like that? All that stuff is in the works. It's changing. We're not the only ones changing it, by the way. I mean, that stuff's changing globally. Today, we train on rotary wing and fixed wing systems. We train on those systems in order to sense and collect from the environment. And we're also training on ways to use them in a more kinetic fashion. So we're doing all that. All that stuff is what we do today. What it's going to look like 5 years from now, man, I wouldn't even venture to guess. But I would venture to guess. I would guess that all those things that I just mentioned, this whole EMSO environment, including cyber, SUAS, AI, it's all going to kind of merge, and we're going to see systems that are feeding some sort of brain with all that data, and it'll be interesting to see how the human fits in that loop going forward. But we're not there yet. So there's a vague answer to your pointed question.